For 17 years, an invisible suspect mailed 16 explosives to targets across the United States. His campaign killed 3 people and injured 23 others. Because his earliest targets were universities and airlines, the FBI assigned the case a specific identifier. UNABOM, a dedicated task force, grew to 150 full-time investigators from the FBI, the ATF, and the Postal Inspection Service, spending millions of dollars over nearly 2 decades. Yet the largest, most expensive manhunt in FBI history stalled completely. They were paralyzed by a suspect who left absolutely 0 traditional clues behind. Curious, the bomber eliminated supply chain tracking entirely. Instead of buying commercial components, he built his devices by hand using common scrap wood, fishing wire, and nails. He even melted down deer hooves to create his own untraceable adhesive. Across 16 different bomb sites spanning 17 years, investigators recovered exactly 0 DNA and 0 fingerprints. The multi-agency task force investigated 2,415 distinct suspects. Out of all that effort, they possessed only one actionable piece of evidence: a single eyewitness sketch of a man in a hoodie and aviator sunglasses. The traditional mechanics of criminal forensics had completely failed. The FBI was, for all practical purposes, hunting a physical ghost. In 1995, the bomber made a tactical shift. He sent a 35,000-word anti-technology manifesto to the press, promising to stop the killings if a major newspaper published his essay in full. This forced the FBI and Attorney General Janet Reno into an agonizing decision. Ultimately, they chose to give a violent terrorist a massive public platform, hoping someone out there would recognize his specific voice. It was a complete strategic pivot. Acknowledging they could not catch him physically, the FBI wagered everything on tracing his intellectual footprint. Publishing the text invited millions of readers to scan for familiar patterns, moving the stalled forensic hunt into a nationwide search for a specific linguistic signature. The ghost they were hunting was Theodore Kaczynski, a mathematical prodigy who had entered Harvard University on a scholarship at age 16. His academic ascent was unparalleled. After earning his PhD from the University of Michigan, he became the youngest math professor in the history of UC Berkeley at just 25 years old. Then, he abruptly rejected modern society. He walked away from academia entirely to live in a primitive 10 by 14-foot wooden cabin in the Montana wilderness, surviving without electricity or running water. His immense intellectual capacity, combined with his absolute physical isolation, created a suspect profile that standard FBI criminal modeling simply could not track. The publication gamble paid off in upstate New York, where Kaczynski's estranged brother, David, sat reading the newly published manifesto. Reading the text, David recognized specific cadences, philosophical arguments, and unique phrasing that matched private letters from his brother. FBI linguistic analysis confirmed the deep structural match, providing the probable cause investigators needed to secure a search warrant. A criminal can wipe down a bomb to erase their physical fingerprints from a crime scene, but their intellectual and linguistic fingerprint is nearly impossible to hide. David Kaczynski wrestled with an agonizing moral dilemma. Stepping forward would likely send his brother to the execution chamber, but staying silent meant innocent people would continue to die. He ultimately chose to contact the FBI. On April 3, 1996, federal agents arrived at the cabin in Lincoln, Montana, effectively ending the 17-year chase. The FBI had spent nearly 2 decades coming up with 0 evidence. Inside the cabin, they found a live explosive ready to mail, alongside 40,000 pages of meticulous journals documenting every single crime. The world finally got its first glimpse of the Unabomber. The disheveled, wild-haired hermit staring out from the mugshot was the exact same academic who had solved elite mathematical theorems at Harvard. The massive, multi-million-dollar task force hadn't physically tracked him down. Kaczynski's own compulsion to document his crimes and publish his ideology handed them the case. Inside the courtroom, Kaczynski fiercely rejected his own lawyer's attempts to mount an insanity defense. He desperately wanted his manifesto to be viewed as legitimate political philosophy, rather than the ramblings of a broken mind. To avoid the insanity label and bypass the death penalty, he pleaded guilty to the charges, accepting 4 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. For 17 years, a lone individual successfully outwitted the most massive technological and forensic law enforcement apparatus in history, simply by retreating entirely from the modern world. Ultimately, his own demand for an audience and the human connection of a brother who listened ended his 17-year campaign.